guys, good morning. So today we're going to be looking at the New Kingdom in Egypt. So last week we did the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom, and I told you that we would be kind of doing an overview. So a big look at these different kingdoms instead of looking at every little thing that happened, because a lot of them had really similar things that happened, or things that in the grand scheme of class aren't going to be super important. So we're going to talk mostly about people today. So the Old Kingdom was from around 1500 BC until 1070 BC. So this era is marked by the pharaohs who rule it. So like I said, we're going to talk mostly about people today, because most of the really significant stuff that happens during this time period happens because of the people who are pharaohs or who are the kings. So the first person we're going to talk about is Thutmose III. Obviously, there was Thutmose II and the first, but we're going to talk about the third. He was next in line to become the king in 1473. But he was only 3 years old, so his stepmother, Hatshepsut, became the queen regent. His rule marks the beginning of the New Kingdom. So this is where we kind of get that date from. When he starts being the king, that starts the New Kingdom. He led an army of over 20,000 men to extend Egypt's control over Syria and Palestine. So he's important because he is the first king in this new era. So we mentioned the word regent. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the word regent before. So a queen regent, or a king regent, if it's a guy, is an adult who rules in the place of a ruler who is a child and inherited a kingdom too young. This can also be for a ruler who is absent or a ruler who is disabled. So basically what this means is, if you're a boy and your dad is the king and your dad dies while you're little, you can't be the king if you're 3, right? So Thutmose III couldn't be the king when his dad died because he was only 3. So his stepmom became kind of like the king. What they do is, their job is to run the kingdom and keep it functioning until the person who's supposed to be king next is old enough to actually do their job. So here it also says that it can also be for a ruler who's absent. So if you're the king and you go fight a war, your wife, who is the queen, could rule your kingdom while you're gone. That way there's someone who's in charge, but it's not necessarily the king because he's gone. Can also be for a ruler who's disabled. We don't see this one as much, but sometimes rulers who have mental handicap or mental illness, or even sometimes a physical disability, someone else will rule for them so that they don't have to do it. But it's their job to, because of who their parents are. That one's a little more complicated. We don't see it super often, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that that's what happens. All right, so the next person we're going to talk about is Hatshepsut. Her name is kind of a tongue twister and hard to say. She is a female pharaoh. One of the reasons we talk about her is because she often gets overlooked because she's a girl. I mentioned last week, I believe, that the Egyptians were some of the few people who would actually let women be in charge and who would actually let women have power. So she's a really good example of this. She is the queen regent for her stepson, but she is the ruler until he becomes old enough to be king. So she built spectacular gardens, buildings, and statues. Many statues of her depict her or have her with a beard. So for many years we thought that she was a man. We now understand that part of the reason she has the beard is because if you look at pictures of pharaohs, they all have this little, it looks kind of like a goatee and it comes off of their face. They almost all have it. And it was part of the big hat that they wear, their headdress. So we think that's probably why she had that in statues. And some statues, she is a man. So for a long time, we thought that she was a man until we were doing more research on her and noticed that it mentions that she's a queen. She was a peaceful leader and she encouraged trade. Now, I personally would love for us to spend a lot of time talking about Hatshepsut. She's so cool. If you're interested in Egyptian history or even just history about women, because I know that a lot of times a lot of our girls are really interested in women who are leaders and who are the king and that kind of thing. If you're interested in her, for the sake of time, we're not going to get into her whole life story because it's very dramatic and it would take us a solid 20 minutes just to talk about her. But if you're interested in it, I highly recommend looking her up on YouTube and checking out some of the documentaries and stuff. She's fascinating to learn about. And I looked for a short one to link so that you guys could watch it if you wanted to. But the shortest one I found that was actually interesting was like 20 minutes long. And so if you're interested, go look for yourself. But she's super cool and really fun to learn about. So our next ruler, this is one you've probably heard of before, King Tut, or Tutankhamun. I did not write his whole name out for you because I'm not gonna ever make you spell King Tut's whole name. He's the most famous to us today. He was only 9 when he became the king, and he was 19 when he died. So he was the king for 10 years. His tomb, so the place that he's buried, taught us more about Egyptian burial and their beliefs about the afterlife. So we learned a lot of things when we found his body, because his tomb was one of the few tombs that hadn't been messed with a lot. Most Egyptian tombs had most of the things inside of them stolen because they were all really valuable. So King Tut's tomb taught us a lot, and his body and the things that were in his tomb with him helped us understand the Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. We're going to do a separate lesson probably later on this week about mummification, because that's a really fascinating process that not a lot of cultures do. So we're going to talk about that by itself. All right, the New Kingdom fell in 1070 BC. So it fell to the Macedonians, who were coming in, taking over, and Egypt changed control a lot. Alexander the Great finally conquered Egypt in 332 BC. And in 51 BC, Queen Cleopatra was the last Egyptian ruler for the next 2,000 years. So this has kind of been like a really big overview of Egyptian history. This week and probably next week, we're gonna look a little bit closer at some different things, different aspects of Egyptian culture, so that we can understand it a little bit better. So for today, this is all we have. It's kind of a shorter video, which I know you guys are excited about. We'll have some questions tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, hopefully we'll have some videos about mummification. All right, let me know if you have any questions, and thank you guys. Have a good day.